I tell people all the time, if you can't create heaven here, you'll never know when you're in heaven. And when you're there, all you do is irritate the shit out of everybody else. The universe is a novelty generator. God does not do things twice. When you realize that nobody can be you but you, and therefore nobody can judge whether you're doing a good job of it or not, because there is only one you, how do you compare yourself to somebody when there's nobody else but you? I mean, if that doesn't give you a hard on, you're already dead.
Welcome back to the Refusing to Settle official show. I'm your host, Clark Kegley, and look, the episode you're about to watch is crazy, okay? It's with none other than Paul Chek. He's the founder of the Chek Institute, former paratrooper, world-renowned expert in holistic wellness. Paul's resume is packed, to say the least, including health consultant for Chicago Bulls, U.S. Air Force Academy, and other pro sports teams, even a former health coach to Tony Robbins himself. But where I think Paul doesn't get enough credit is his role as a thought leader. I've been personally following Paul for almost a decade, and he's fundamentally influenced many of my views on spirituality, health, happiness, and love. I want to get to the show, but two very important things before we dive into this long-form conversation. First, this show was recorded back in February of 2020. Okay, that's almost an entire 2 months before the peak of the COVID hysteria. And I'm bringing this up because it's scary how accurate some of Paul's predictions are in this interview about the future of the world waking up, and how sometimes that's not always because of our individual choosing. Second, I wanted to remind you that this show is free for you. All we ask is that you support it by giving a like, smashing that like button, commenting down below with your biggest takeaway, and when you make it to the end, sharing this show with someone you think would love it. That is it. Ready for the show? Please welcome my guest, the great Paul Chek. Paul, I guess a great place to really dive in is to get your take. I'm super curious, and we were talking about on the way up of, 2020 is here, and it feels, just saying that number and seeing it like 2020, something feels different about it.
That's because there's a lot about it.
Yeah, what do you think about the next 10 years versus the past 10 years? I'll leave it there.
Well, if you look at the number 2020, I can break it down for you. 2020. That numerically is looking in the mirror. So we're now looking back at ourselves. We're now at a point where we have to face what we've created. We have to face the damage we've done to nature. We have to face the fact that we're still practicing ethnocentric religion that excludes people. We have to face that we have a president that's completely lunatic and tries to divide the country and wants to build walls and wants to keep drilling oil, even though there's, so much science showing us we should stop doing that immediately. We have to face that we can't take shortcuts. We have to face that we got to get out of our heads and stop living in phones and in the digital world and get back to the earth. We have to start being honest about what we're putting into our bodies. I mean, we have an epidemic of cancer, we have an epidemic of obesity, we have an epidemic of depression, of suicide, of chronic disease. But none of these things happen overnight. And people have to start growing up and stop listening to pseudoscience and thinking just because it says you'll lose fat or feel better or it'll keep your dick hard, that it's actually true, and realize people will tell you any goddamn thing to sell you something. And so what I'm saying, we're at a time now where if you don't be honest with yourself and pay attention to what you see in the mirror and how you feel and say, okay, that's just not working no matter what that damn magazine or scientist says, I got to do something different. And who's got what I want? If you want to learn to surf, follow Laird Hamilton. If you want to learn to race motocross, look into Jeremy McGrath or one of those guys, right? Who's also been a client of mine. And if you want to play basketball, well, study Kobe. He's gone now, but love to you, Kobe. The point I'm making is there's always somebody who's already done the firewalk that you're going through. So instead of listening to, sick fat people that call themselves doctors and therapists, go find somebody who's really made that transition, ask them how they did it, and start there.
Yeah.
But the point that I'm making is that we can't pretend that we can take shortcuts anymore. We've got to now look at what is life really made of. Well, the basis of life is the earth. It's water, it's air, and it's fire. Fire is the sun or the warmth principle. Inside you, the sun is your solar plexus. That means sun plexus. It's your digestive system that converts everything that once was sunlight that became food into energy. Well, we've got metabolic syndromes coming out the yazoo. We got sick people all over the place. We've got massive problems with people's microbiomes because people keep buying cheap food that's raised on chemically farmed fields that are destroying nature. So when you say, okay, we need the earth, well, we're ruining it, trying to take shortcuts, and it's unnecessary, and it's not needed at all. That's a big bullshit story. Our waters are polluted. There's hardly a clean water supply anywhere. The air is polluted. There's places that are so toxic it kills old people. Phoenix, Arizona. I mean, not Phoenix, Scottsdale, Arizona used to be one of the most polluted cities in the United States.
Oh.
I was there years ago taking a course, and I went out for a run, and I had to stop and come back. My eyes were itching, and my lungs were burning so bad, I felt like I was running with an exhaust pipe in my mouth. So when you say, well, look, here we are trying to do all this stuff to fix cancer and all these pills and shit, it's just get right back to basics. The young people of our generation have got to stop playing the stupid games that their parents played, because the earth is at its edge. We're on the edge of the sixth mass extinction, and there's tons of science demonstrating that. So 2020 is the mirror. Also, if you look at it archetypally, you can look at the tarot archetypes, which are really the archetypes that we go through in life. It's a cycle of psychic development. 2 is the high priestess. The high priestess represents your soul, your inner voice, your inner truth. When someone's telling you a lie, there's a voice inside of you that says, I'm being lied to right now, isn't there? That's the high priestess in you, okay? 0 is the fool. So in tarot, 0 is the fool. There's 2 kinds of fools. The immature fool that keeps trying to take shortcuts, lie, bullshit, do dumb stuff to try to get somewhere without doing the work, which a lot of young people keep trying to do, and old people, and middle-aged people.
Right.
And then there's the mature fool. And the wise fool is the one who's lived through all the archetypes. He's seen all the silliness. He's tried all the shortcuts and knows they don't work. So he's the wise man you end up having to come to when everything's falling apart, and the smart guys with master's degrees and PhDs can't help you. So 2, 0, high priestess, and the fool, the person that's not listening to themselves and is being an immature fool, is now has an opportunity to pay attention to who really is in touch with their spiritual depths and their connection to the cosmos, and who has made that journey and has accomplished things in their life and has something to show for it.
Wow.
So there's the mirror. You can either look at yourself and only see what you're capable of seeing, or you can look into the mirror and say, who can I trust, because the way they live is sustainable, and it brings people together and creates community and creates harmony, and it is life affirmative.
Yeah. So with the 2020 and being the mirror reflected back, I know a lot of people that I'm friends with and that follow this channel, and in myself even, they have all these dreams and aspirations, and they really want to go for it, and they have these big kind of one day I'll do that and possibility there, but they get stopped with the overthinking in their own head. They get in their own way with it. I'm just curious what your thoughts are, moving forward to this 2020 and beyond, and the future of possibility and all the changes that we need. How do we get out of our own way is a big thing I wanted to ask you, whether that be people who struggle with anxiety and overthinking of what if could happen in the future, or depression even of thinking about the past and, the best days were behind me. What's your thought in that kind of place? I threw a lot out there, but.
I get it. First of all, if you look at the structure stages of consciousness, there's several models. I'll use Gene Gebser's model. So when they study how consciousness emerged in a human being over time, the first stage is the archaic, which links to the earth. And it's linked to the crystalline structure of the earth and the ability for the earth to conduct energy and information from the cosmos. And it's linked to everything that comes out of the earth, right? In our body, it's linked to our digestive system. So the archaic system of consciousness would be linked to things like earthworms and snakes, right? And the way rivers flow. I mean, if you look at a picture of a small intestine in an anatomy book, it looks just like a river winding through a valley, right? So the archaic level represents our connection to the seed forces in the earth, right? You pull a weed out and it grows back. You kill the wolves and come back a year later and there's wolves again. Because these are the dreams of the earth. We are a dream of the earth. So we have the archaic level, which links to the soil and all the seed forces or ideas that create life on earth. Then we have the magic level, which links to the plant kingdom. It links to the animal kingdom. But the magic level really links to our ears, to listening. And if you look at pictures drawn in caves and old rock paintings from thousands of years ago, they often drew people with no mouths. There was a huge period of time where they didn't draw a mouth. Why? Because listening, 25,000 years ago, listening for the tiger that might eat you or the black panther was more important. So we had to listen to the birds, and we lived in a state of consciousness where we saw them as our brothers and sisters, right? Though they might eat us.
Yeah.
But so humans kill each other too, right? But the point is if you study shamanism in native cultures, there's massive amounts of information about our sister or our brother, the bear, our father, the eagle. You know, there was a kinship with the animals, and the way you connected to them and survived in nature was you paid very close attention, because you can often hear something way before you can see it in nature. I'm building up so you get to a point.
This is great.
Here. So we have the earth, archaic, then we have magic, ears, then we have mythic. Mythic is when we started telling stories to try to help our young people understand what were these forces that we didn't understand. What did lightning mean? So we called it Zeus. We didn't have modern science. What does it mean when the winters get long and the skies get dark? Why do people die? How do plants grow? So we entered into the mythic when we started telling stories to each other that were very important for us to learn how to be part of a community or a tribe, to learn the proprieties and improprieties. How do you engage the neighboring tribe or a potential enemy so that you don't cause unnecessary death? How do you understand the monstrous mystery of life? So we needed stories, and this is pre-written language. Our oral tradition goes way farther than language does, written language. So there we're in the phase where our ears were very dominant and really listening. And I'm not talking like listening to shit on the radio or garbage podcasts or stupid humor or bad television. I'm talking about listening to the owl that might be saying, hey, look out, you're about 30 feet from a big cat, and learning the different sounds. Well, how many people don't listen to themselves? We just talked about that. You don't get fat overnight. You don't get sick overnight.
Yeah.
So listening deeply, not to just what people are saying with their mouth, but what they're really saying. And what a lot of people are saying right now is I'm lost, confused, and scared. And so the next level, you got the archaic, the magic, the mythic. The next level is the mental. And the mental correlates to the eye. We think in pictures. That's well documented scientifically. We don't think in words, we think in pictures. So when we have an idea, we usually image the idea inside of ourselves. For example, if I ask somebody, what kind of car would you really like to have? The first thing they're going to see is their black BMW or whatever it might be.
So visualization.
So visualization, right? And working with imagery. And really, what is a dream? It's a series of images, just like a movie. And dreams can be as real or more real than your waking life. And most of us have had those experiences. I mean, people have orgasms in dreams. I mean, how real can it get? I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, if you can have an orgasm in a dream and there's nobody there,
Right.
that's probably easier. I just got to know how to do it every night. But the point that I'm making here is that now we're up at the level of images. And images, there's an old saying, a picture's worth 1,000 words. The problem is we've now gotten trapped in images, and images are used to sell things to people that they shouldn't be buying, to tell people things that aren't true, to make them believe it's true.
Yeah.
Light has an almost infinite capacity to carry information. So phones carry all sorts of hidden messages in the light. So do televisions. Most people don't realize what the word television means. It means tell a vision. Program somebody to believe that they should be scared that someone's going to break into their house, so they got to buy expensive insurance. Program them to believe they're going to get sick, so they'll buy all these drugs. Program them to believe their skin's going to be shitty, so if they don't take this acne cream.
Right.
And so if you don't have a vision of your own, then you're susceptible to all sorts of crap.
Wow.
Okay, then we go past the mental to the integral, which is seeing through it all. The integral means integrated. It means I'm in touch with my animal earthly nature. I'm in touch with the earth, which includes the water. I'm in touch with the part of me that listens deeply. I'm in touch with story. And the stories that are most important to me are the ones that give me a sense of meaning, purpose, and connection in life. And somehow that story carries a message that will carry me through the challenges of my life, because it's usually the story that was passed down by the wise ones that have been through wars, that have had families break up, that have fought off diseases. So a myth is a story that has real meaning. Today, people think myth means to tell a lie. But the real meaning of a myth is something that never happened but is happening all the time.
Right.
Right?
Like a Joseph Campbell, Power of Myth.
Exactly.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Right? Well, what's never happened but is happening all the time? God. Find God. Point to God for me. You have to point everywhere.
Yeah.
But what do people do? They point to a book.
Right.
Well, that's a complete misunderstanding of what a mythology is. A mythology basically puts you in the center of yourself and says, look all around you. Because the most important things of life cannot be explained in quaint, simple ideas. So you have to get connected.
Yeah.
So the integral person is somebody who uses their awareness of what life really is, which requires earth, water, fire, air, and space. They know about listening deeply. They know about the importance of the word, right? I define an adult as someone who says what they mean and means what they say. And how often do you meet people that say what they mean and mean what they say today?
Right.
It's just bullshit on top of bullshit. But if you keep playing that game, then you can't rely on anybody. And so what happens? You can't trust your own relationships. So you can have 50 friends and feel completely disconnected because you never know who you can trust to get you to the airport on time, or who you can trust to take care of your dog without leaving your house open and stuff like that.
So you think I don't mean to cut you off.
Sorry.
This is great. But so I guess to go back to like the anxiety, depression epidemic, or the person who wants to do the big things, they're getting caught at one of those levels and they're not being integrated.
They're getting caught in their head. They're getting caught in ideas.
Yes.
The head is like a kite and the body is the tail. Have you ever tried to fly a kite with no tail?
Can't say I have.
Well, I'll tell you what happens. You can't control it. It just goes all over the place and hits the ground and gets broken to pieces.
Yeah.
It would be like trying to sail a ship with no keel on it. If you had no keel, it'd just blow the ship over. There's a reason the keel weighs as much as the whole boat or more. I mean, sometimes the keel, the taller the mast on the sailboat, the bigger the keel has to be to keep it from blowing over. So that's your stabilizing force, right? Yeah. If your body's not healthy and you don't eat real food, drink water, rest, move, breathe, and have a connection to the wisdom of your body. The body's so friggin' complex. I mean, you got 30 billion biochemical reactions a second. How much computing power does it take to handle that?
Yeah.
You got 100 trillion cells. Each of them are made of 100 trillion atoms, all working perfectly to allow you to keep being you every day. And you got to say, who in the hell can control 100 trillion cells, each made of 100 trillion? Do the math on that. You don't have a computer big enough to handle that many zeros.
Well, most of them are empty space right at the quantum level. So some
There
other
you-
intelligence
and
takes it to the next level.
That's the great dream. That's the great dream. Einstein said the field is the sole organizing force of the particle. What is the field? The field is God. The field is consciousness. I'm not talking about a religious God you can read about in a book that's going to watch you masturbate and burn you in hell. I'm talking about the source of all that is. I'm talking about the mystery.
Wow.
I'm talking about the reason we have myth. I'm talking about the fact that modern scientists who claim to know how everything's going on forget to tell you that they claim it all began with a Big Bang, but they don't know what that is.
Yeah.
So paradoxically, they're on no better footing than religion.
Yeah.
They don't know what the first step of their own myth is, but they put it off like it's objective fact. Well, that's just another form of religion. And look, science backs everything that kills us. Science backs microwave ovens. It backs every drug that's been taken off the market. It backs every piece of equipment that turned out to be dangerous pretty much. We can't trust science anymore because science has turned into the biggest modern prostitution ring there is. Scientists will say anything to get paid.
And they can't even explain where consciousness resides.
There's
no spot for
massive
that
debate.
or the self or the...
Yeah, it's just like religion. Look, there's 33,000 branches of Christianity. How do you think Jesus must think, knowing that what his message is now broken into 33,000 different interpretations, all claiming to have the truth?
Right.
Well, guess what? If those people would just go inside themselves and say, well, what's at the basis of Jesus's message? It's the same message in all religions. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. What is a moral? It's a code of conduct that's life affirmative. Well, look around. We're destroying the whole fucking planet. And who's doing it? Religious people. And atheists, but religious people. 85% of the world population claims religious affiliation. What am I saying? I'm saying you got to listen to yourself. You got to pay attention to the basics. You got to listen to your gut. That's your instincts. Your instincts to move, your instincts to poop, your instincts to pee, your instincts to breathe, your instincts to sleep, your instincts to be creative, right? If you're hungry and there's no food, you better get creative and figure out how to make a bow and arrow or a knife or something sharp and go hunting. But when people get too up in their head, they're so busy surfing the internet and playing on computers and video games and watching porn on TV that they shut down their instincts. So they shut down the archaic level of consciousness. They shut down the magic. They're not listening anymore. They shut down the mythic because they're listening to stories that aren't even working in their own life. And they believe everything they see and read because somebody that they think wearing a white jacket or has more of an academic degree than them says it's true. Well, those are the people that have destroyed the planet. The young people today need to dial back in. Go work on a farm. Get your feet in the dirt. Get into the rivers. Watch an animal. Go to a slaughterhouse and watch an animal get slaughtered so you know exactly what you're doing when you keep filling your face full of meat and all this overeating and garbage food. Pay close attention to the fact that nature is in a perpetual sacrifice so we can keep playing video games and being stupid. That's throwing the whole system out of balance, and that imbalance is mirrored back at us. And 2020 is the year which we come to the realization globally, we can't do this anymore. We're all going to die.
No.
And it's when we finally go, oh, maybe these scientists were right. Edward O. Wilson, a famous naturalist, wrote a book called The Future of Life.
You recommended that and I read it.
Well, there you go. I mean, wasn't that, and that was, he wrote another book, I think it's called A Message to the Christians or something, but the point he made is we're killing off more animal species every year than ever in the history of man.
And that was 10 years ago when he wrote it? Or
at least 10 years ago. And this isn't just a natural die-off. This is extinction. Look what we're doing to the ocean, putting military systems in there that the sonars drive the whales nuts and they beach themselves and die. I wrote about an event that happened on the East Coast. 5,000 seals all of a sudden died on the coast of, I think it was Maine. And when the biologists analyzed them in autopsy to find out what the hell killed them, they found out that it was a virus that had always existed in the ocean, that they'd always been able to fight off, but their immune systems were so crippled from all the fossil fuels and chemicals we've dumped in the ocean that it was shutting their immune systems down We're killing the Great Barrier Reef. We're cutting the rainforest down so that McDonald's and Arby's and Chicken Colonel Sanders and Chicken, what is his
Chick-fil-A.
name? Colonel Sanders shit food.
Oh yeah.
And so cotton growers, look, if we stopped logging and started growing hemp, for God's sakes, the hemp industry could fix all sorts of problems. But you see, you've got all these big financial interests that want us to use fossil fuel, want to control energy, got rid of Tesla, want to keep the status quo going. Well, those dragons have to die. And you're not going to do it politically because they own the government. We don't have a government. We got a corporate headquarters. How do you do it? You say, what keeps me alive and what can I participate in that's meaningful, that's sustainable, that will be here tomorrow when I have kids, when you have kids, right? And then you participate in doing those things, and you'll find when you participate in doing things that are sustainable, that you become sustainable. When you make the world happy, the earth happy, you feel happy. Well, what do we got today? Everyone taking a pill, trying to take shortcuts, not exercising right, not breathing, not moving, believing shit they read in magazines and on their phones, and they're dying and we're killing nature for it. There's no sustainability in that.
Yeah.
It's a death walk.
To bring it back to the points we were talking about, and you mentioned something with consumption, and I think it was really important to like dive in there because I have my own struggles with overthinking. I still struggle to it to this day. It's very in my own head before content or before a business or an interaction at times.
Well, you're a product of the education system, and that's what it does to you. It deifies ideas without actual practical experience.
I've realized with the overthinking, the one thing that makes it worse, ironically, is more learning, is more podcasts, is more consumption, which seems counter because you think that I have this problem of overthinking or anxiety or depression or whatever people are struggling with. You think that seeking out people for answers is going to be the best solution. But what I'm hearing to tie a knot on all this that you're saying is you actually don't need to go outside of yourself. You need to tune back in.
If you go, there's a time like, here I am talking to you. I'm outside of yourself. But what am I telling you to do? I'm telling you, look, you don't need to read a book to find God. Just hold still. You don't need to ask an expert whether or not you should pee or poop more, or whether your skin's bad. Just pay attention to what you're eating and how your body responds. You don't need to take a pill because you're tired. Go to fucking bed when you're tired. If you just get back to the basics, the biochemistry and the health of the body mirrors itself in the mind. So when your body's not healthy, it activates survival protective reflexes. Your whole reptilian brain structure is based on survival. It's there to keep you alive. Your entire autonomic nervous system is a system that keeps you alive. If you're not eating well, not sleeping well, not moving well, not breathing well, your body thinks it's dying. So what happens, it sends these fear messages to the brain, but we've got all these convoluted ideas in the way, so the urge for rest becomes the urge for more coffee. The urge to move becomes, I just need a bigger pillow. The urge for breathing isn't even picked up. The urge to poop, when I get finished with this video game, and you alter and suppress all those instincts that are designed to keep you alive. So when you keep repressing all that, the body itself gets so scared that it's sending messages of fear up into the brain that produce rapid thinking and attention deficit behavior, because that's looking for threats.
Yeah.
The brain's looking everywhere. Where's the tiger? Where's the tiger? But when you're so detached from your body, you don't know the tiger is your diet or the way you're living or the crap you're watching on television, and the fact that you're not actually resting your body, then you don't find the tiger. So you end up with ADD or ADHD or OCD or mania or bipolar, right? And now, that's just normal. It's normal to be fat. It's normal to have a disease. It's normal to be on piles of drugs. It's normal to be sick. And it's normal to have people that can't control their minds. Why? Because they don't realize their mind is mirroring the health of their body and the fear of their body. If I've worked with so many people with these problems, it's too many to count. But the reality of it is, the first thing I do is I ground people in the basics. And usually within 4 days, they go, oh my God, I'm not having all these terrible dreams and fearful thoughts and suicidal thoughts. Yeah, because you stop poisoning your body. Simple. I mean, everyone's running off in the jungle to do, shamanic journeys. And I say, well, quit taking yourself on bad trips with cheap chocolate and garbage food and, sports bars. I mean, you kill animals if you fed them that stuff, but people didn't believe it's good for them.
One thing that I come back to, either in journaling sessions or doing some coaching with people, it's in a business coaching setting, but still, we're diving deep into some concepts. I'm like, what would have to happen for you to move forward if they're blocked on taking an action or something like that? And it's along the lines of, I need to know that everything's going to work out. Everything in the future is going to be okay. I'm going to be safe, right? Some version of that.
Yeah, of course. But that's you know what that is? That's a child in an adult body who doesn't realize that the earth is going at about 68,000 miles an hour and nobody knows where the fuck it's going and no one's driving.
For sure.
Meaning we're all on a shamanic journey together. And the reality of it is, Buddha himself said, change is the only universal constant.
Right.
And what the ego does is tries to create the illusion that I'll always have money in the bank, that there will always be food, that I'll always be protected, that the cops are always looking out for my best interest, that the president's actually looking out for my best interest, which is a very big mistake. So what it is, it's the child who's never grown up that wants to turn the president into daddy and their religious god into a daddy and you into a daddy and the bank into a daddy while they keep living like kids and not realizing that the X factor is nobody knows what's going to happen. So the thing you do is you live in ways that are sustainable so that if hard times come, you have enough money in the bank. You don't need to be rich, but you need to say, okay, what am I going to eat? That's why I live way out here. That's why I support organic farms. The point though, is that is clearly a symptom of childish behavior in an adult body. And it means you don't understand the impermanence and the fluctuations that are natural in life. And all you got to do is look at biographies of movie stars and rock stars. How many of them make it all the way to the top and just explode?
Right.
How many of them get exactly what they asked for, but stardom kills them? How many people get rich and go bankrupt? Well, Donald Trump's famous for going bankrupt like 3 times. My point is, if you really look at people that are successful, they've made it through crisis after crisis. The difference is they didn't give up.
Right.
So what I'm telling you is that what you're describing is people that are trying to get you or others to remove the risk of crisis.
Yes.
And if you remove the risk of crisis, you remove the risk of responsibility, right? I used to ride in the rodeo. I was a motocross racer. I was a drag racer. I was a stock car racer. I had a roll cage. I had a fire extinguisher in there. I had all the things I had to have so that if a car crash happened, I had less likelihood of getting killed. I had to take responsibility for doing the things that are necessary. If you get into a river raft and you don't have a life vest on, you're an idiot.
Yeah.
Right? So the point is, because it is the instability of life that makes it exciting and makes it worth living. If it was like that, it would be like being a railway car stuck on tracks.
Yeah.
And, Carl Jung said, no man is fully alive until he has the power to destroy himself. Well, here we all are. We got enough nuclear weapons to destroy the entire planet 179 times over. We are killing each other with drugs, with food, garbage food. We're killing each other with television. We're killing each other with bogus media, with lies, manipulation. We're killing each other with political misinformation. Well, one of 2 things is going to happen. We got the power to kill ourselves and we're going to do it, or we're going to be fully alive and say, what do we got to do to keep feeling alive? And the way we do it is we start working together and we start paying attention to what life really is and do the things that are meaningful. And I'm almost 60 years old. I've lived so fully. I've rode it, had sex with it. I've made money. I've broken myself to pieces and been in the hospital and didn't even know how I got there, and many concussions and broken bones all through my body. I know I can survive about anything. And I also know that if I die, that's fucking cool too, because I'm ready to say, cool, man. I mean, if I didn't have my little kids, I wouldn't even give a shit. I'd say, lightning strike. I'm ready to go see what's behind the curtain, because that's very interesting to me. But most people haven't really lived yet, you know?
That's just what I was about to ask. How do people develop that confidence that you have?
You ride the dragon. But you can't ride dragons that are fun until you learn how to ride the dragon that you're supposed to ride, which is taking care of yourself and paying attention to what you're paying for with your money. You start pumping money into all these corporations. I mean, look, only 4 to 6% of the food eaten in the whole world is organic. That means 94 to 96% of all the food is coming from chemically destroyed, poisonous, toxic soils. We can't even eat the fish out of the ocean practically anymore. We've poisoned that. You know, we got all these drugs. What I'm saying is people are riding dragons that are killers. And that's the shadow element. That's the shortcut. That's, you know, this began with the industrial age with producing machines to make things easier, but we kind of lost control of that. Well, there's a certain point where making things easier doesn't make them better, right? Yeah. It's a lot easier if you can hire someone to go to the gym for you, but it won't do a damn thing for you.
Right.
You can hire someone to wipe your ass too, but you'll never smell your own poop and know whether you're eating very well. You know, the reality of it is that there's a point at which making things easier actually makes them a lot harder, because you don't know how to work with the natural resistance that makes life grow.
Yeah.
You know, for example, you know what lunacy is, right? You know how on the full moon people act really crazy?
Yeah, if you're a lunatic.
Yes, that's what lunatic means, okay? Well, the point I'm trying to make here is that at full moon, it's very stressful for the plants because the moon's reflecting sunlight at night, so they don't get a rest cycle.
Oh.
But research in farming shows that stress is very necessary because it actually encourages them to grow. How is that different than going to a gym and engaging stress effectively and intelligently? How is that any different than the stress of the work it takes to grow a business honestly?
Yeah.
How is it any different than the stress of a relationship? You fall in love, you have wild, passionate sex, and 6 months later, you can't believe you were having sex with that girl because she drives you fucking crazy, or vice versa. But then you have to say, well, wait a minute. When she's gone, I really miss her and I still love her. So there must be more to it than just this superficial, you know, he left his socks on the floor, she nags me. That's the stress of growing in relationship to create something that's more important than your petty needs, which is the relationship itself.
Yeah.
What am I saying? If we don't use stress intelligently and decide which stresses are worth engaging, then we get caught in dealing with the stresses we create by unconscious programmed behavior that trap us and make us sick enough and tired enough that we don't have the resources to engage the meaningful stresses of personal relationship, family relationship, community relationship, governmental realities, national realities, international realities. And when you vote somebody in that is completely out of control and is mirroring us the worst parts of ourselves and saying, look, we just voted the darkness of ourselves into government so we can look at ourselves. Well, someone like that can get the whole world destroyed. Well, how is that any different than people committing suicide, burning themselves out with drugs, eating junk food? And we got the highest rate of suicide in every category that we've ever had. Why? Because people aren't paying attention with how to use the resistance of the meaningful to live a life that grows you into something that you yourself can be proud of.
Yeah.
So when your head's going crazy, go stand in the mirror and look at yourself and say, I love you. You're my best friend. And all this head fucking about what someone might say on a podcast ain't improving the podcast. So why don't we take a few minutes to give gratitude for all the things we have and remind ourselves of the things we need to do to make sure our body's happy and healthy, so we know that the head fucking's not a side effect of our own silliness. In other words, every time something comes up, flip it over and say, there's my reminder I have a mind virus, that I overthink things. So let me take 20 minutes or 20 seconds to do a moment of silence and just connect deeply to myself. Every problem carries the solution. That's what the Tai Chi symbol tells you.
Yeah.
Yang has nothing to become but yin. Yin has nothing to become but yang. A problem carries the solution.
Okay, so seeking this out, and this is something I've wanted to ask you. So people, they're so attached to outcomes, right?
Yes.
If
As a disease, by the way.
I believe it. But I think the three currencies, I forget who wrote about it, but it's time, energy, and money.
Yeah.
And so, there's obviously money and then energy and your time. To get anything like you're talking about, to go through and ride the dragon and enjoy life or get some reward, you have to use one of those three currencies.
There's one missing in there, though.
What do you think that is?
Love.
Love?
Because time, energy, and money without love are a prison, aren't they? Take love out of the equation.
Yeah.
And I give you time, energy, and money to play with, and what do you got?
Just a bunch of stuff to hopefully get love.
There you go.
Yeah.
So get the priorities right.
Right.
Because until you have love for yourself,
Right.
you'll never love anybody else more than you, because it's a threat to your own survival.
Yeah.
If you love someone
Wow.
more than you love yourself, you spend all your time doting them while you're forgetting to eat and take care of yourself. And the next thing you know, the relationship breaks down because you're now their codependent. They're having to wipe your ass and be your mommy or your daddy.
Yeah.
Right?
Let's talk about love. I don't even want to ask that question anymore. That's more interesting. How do you love yourself fully? What have you done to practice self-love? Was there ever a time where you didn't, or has that always
No.
been natural? No, it's just always been a...
From the time I was a child, I used to be looking up at the stars and going, wow, how the fuck did I get here? Then I started asking, what did it take to make me? And what I found is I could not be here without the earth. No minerals, no bones. No minerals, nothing to regulate your hormones. No water, no you. You're about 70% water. Where'd the water come from? Everywhere. Every fucking where. No breath, no Paul. So I breathe this atmosphere, and you and I are breathing molecules that Jesus and Buddha and Muhammad breathed. No earth, no water, no fire, no sun, no warmth, no food, no metabolism. Okay, well, where'd the minerals that make the earth come from? Well, research shows they were once in stars, and when they track back to the stars, they say those minerals were in other stars. All the elements that you know of as the periodic table come from stars. And when they go to the stars, they found that it came from all the stars and they can't track it. So guess what? You want to know something absolutely mind-blowing? You couldn't be here without the entire fucking universe. If that doesn't just sit you up in your chair and go, hallelujah, the universe wanted to be you. There's only one you. There will never be another person on this planet with these fingerprints, ever. Nobody with that smile or those eyes, nobody with those unique ideas, that way of speaking, connecting. There will never, ever be. Again, the universe is a novelty generator. God does not do things twice, right? When you realize that nobody can be you but you, and therefore nobody can judge whether you're doing a good job of it or not, because there is only one you, how do you compare yourself to somebody when there's nobody else but you?
Yeah.
When you realize the entire fucking universe dreamed you up so you could co-create and add beauty to it. I mean, if that doesn't give you a hard on, you're already dead. I mean, when you realize the majesty and the mystery and the beauty of that, if you don't just go, hallelujah, man, I got the greatest opportunity to dance, sing, play, party, create, and add to the beauty with great spirit, well, then you're never going to be happy no matter where you are or what you are. And if you can't learn to do it here on earth, look, I tell people all the time, if you can't create heaven here, you'll never know when you're in heaven. And when you're there, all you do is irritate the shit out of everybody else. Right?
Right.
So as a kid, I used to sit and wonder, how in the hell did I get here? And as I grew, I kept asking the question. And as I studied science, it just dawned on me. A lot of this shit people say is just wrong. It's just wrong. What are genes? Genes aren't what control your life. Genes are cosmic antennas that tap you into the field of information that is infinite. What is God? God is not some old man in the sky. God is the source and the sum of everything. And really, the only way you can experience God is energy and information. Everything in the entire universe is made of energy and information, including you. But you're a unique combination of energy and information, and you're a unique combination that reflects on its own thoughts, feelings, and ideas. So when you realize you're God, pretending not to be God, then you might as well start being a better God. And if you don't like your life, fucking change it.
Yeah.
It's not that hard.
Yeah, absolutely. With love then, and loving yourself so you can ultimately give that out, I guess to tie a bow on what we were talking about, you think that's what's going to get us through 2020. That's the future. That's the thing we have to focus on. It goes back to it.
What we've got to focus on is realizing that we all need each other. You know, it's hard for me, for example, to sit every day knowing there's 2 billion people on the planet that don't have a pot to piss in, don't have anything to eat, don't have a closet, a bed to place their head, don't have a pillow. And there's people that are so filthy, stinking rich, like Bill Gates, that they could solve all the environmental problems with the wave of a checkbook. You know, the problems that we have now are so complicated, we need to put the greatest minds that there are together and come up with solutions. Because if we don't do it soon, the Earth's immune system is going to make changes that are going to wipe out millions of human beings, and it might damage all the social systems and subsystems such as electrical systems, roadways, airways, everything that we've built to have a playground, that the trauma psychologically will be enough. Most people will just rather commit suicide. I mean, you know, imagine someone who's never been on a farm, doesn't know how to hunt, fish, plant, and all of a sudden they got nothing. So what we need to do is say, okay, what do we need to do to bring the earth back into harmony and create sustainability? Well, one of the things you got to do is you got to stop letting 5 companies control 90% of the food supply. When I was a paratrooper, the first thing they teach you, in order to beat your enemy, first you knock out their communications, and then you knock out their food supply and their water. And then you got them.
Right.
Well, when 5 companies own and control the trafficking of, the transport of about 90% of the food, that is a very dangerous situation to be in. When one company, Google, controls 90% of the information flow on the planet, including supplying the military with computers, you are in a very dangerous situation. All you got to do is watch the documentary called The Creepy Line. If that doesn't just make you wake right up, you're already dead. Facebook and Google are examples of dangerous, dangerous corporations that have sucked people right in, but use their information against them and do what's called weaponizing personal information to get them to buy stuff they can't afford and live lives that they shouldn't be living, that's destroying the fabric of our culture. And when you push a culture far enough down that its mythology breaks down, you see the emergence of isms. Well, we got isms coming out like crazy. Vegetarianism, veganism, you know, there's all sorts of isms out there. You got skinhead groups. You got all this division now. So people get scared and they start clustering to groups, and those ideas become the imaginary daddy that's going to protect them.
Right.
Well, we got to start holding hands together and say, you know, what are you really good at? Well, you're good at communicating and creating connection for people. And someone's going to be really good at farming, and someone's going to be good at making shoes, and someone's going to be good at electronics. But when we say, what are we all good at? What can we throw into the pie, into the party, into the process? Then we'll come up with great ideas that give us all a reason to live. And we all need each other. We need the planet. And we are obviously important to the planet, or we wouldn't be here. We're her creative expression. You could say Mother Earth's kids are in puberty right now, and she's doing her best to keep them from drunk driving, you know, at the expense of her own existence. But the Earth's a living organism. All you got to do is study the Gaia philosophy. And James Lovelock's a scientist. I mean, anybody that knows biology knows the Earth's a living organism. I mean, people that say it's not are just dumb fucks. Excuse me, they're just stupid. So I'm saying that we need each other. And the Earth can't take a beating anymore. You know, when when a child goes through puberty, dad kicks it out of the house. Well, mom's going to have to kick us out of the house if we don't wise up and start being in harmony with her. And I think a lot of the angst people have is there's an unconscious awareness that we're at the edge right now.
Yeah.
I think there's an unconscious fear that all the sugar and all the, Facebook and all the distractions can't be sustainable. So at the core, because mind is one connected field. At the level of our unconscious, we're all connected. We're all like computers wired together that talk together. We all know we can't exist without nature. I mean, just to show you how bad it is, though, Jamie Oliver, the famous British chef, used to travel all over the world. And he showed something I saw in a documentary one time that blew my mind. This is like 10 years ago I saw this. He would take flashcards that had a mix of common farm animals and fruits and vegetables and corporate symbols.
Mm-hmm.
Then he analyzed the data after doing this for many years, and he showed that 50% of elementary school children did not know common fruits, vegetables, and farm animals. You show them a picture of a sheep, they don't know what it is. A pig, they don't know what it is. A carrot, they don't know what it is. A potato, they don't know what it is. But they knew 100% of corporate symbols.
Huh.
They knew CBS, they knew Target, they knew NBC, they knew the BBC,
Wow.
they knew, all the cool clothing fashions, but they didn't know common fruits, vegetable, and farm animals.
Yeah.
Okay, that means you're in deep shit. Because the people of tomorrow have to understand how the world works today. Because you cannot eat ideas. You can't eat a phone. You can't eat something that flows in electrons.
You can't eat your followers on Instagram,
You can't
the amount of them.
And you can't even live with fake friends, right? Look, all this FaceTiming and Snapchatting and all this shit is producing massive amounts of segregation and depression and anxiety, and it's shown through psychological research, clear as a bell. We need each other, and we need the earth, and that should bring us to the point where we say, how can we support the organic farms? And how can we be paying attention with when we spend our money? Because the only way you get rid of these dangerous corporations is you starve them. Stop buying their shit, and they've got to either make something that's earth-friendly or we let them starve out.
Yeah.
And if the young people in your generation don't get busy, I got news for you. We're about to go down a river with grade 6 rapids, and grade 5's as high as they go. And there will be no paddle and no rudder, and the people in those boats won't have a clue what to do.
When you see this fork in the road that you're talking about, on one end we have
You're sitting on it.
the
fork in the road. We're there.
fork in the road. Right.
We're at it.
Okay, so we're at it. One end we have, I don't know how many times over we could destroy the
179
Earth. 179 times
with
with the
nuclear
nukes.
weapons that we have right now.
You see the politicians, you see the money, you see the 50% can't recognize farm animals, but they got the brands. You see all that, and it's like, stay away, obviously. But then you see this side over here, it's the path that we need to be walking down.
Yeah.
Are you optimistic about the next 10 years of us going down that path? Or where, if you were a betting man, where would you place the Vegas odds?
Well, I'm not one to blow smoke up, but I'm not a fatalist either. If you look at the trend throughout history, look, the last big psychedelic craze was through the Vietnam era. Why? Because people that could feel were so emotionally distraught that we entered into a war to destroy people that wasn't even a real war. They knew it was just political horseshit. Rich people stealing from poor people. We've got plenty of history of human beings hurting because we, the public, knew that what the state was doing was unethical and immoral. But we keep doing it. And we keep playing dumb. And we keep ignoring what they're doing with our tax dollars. We keep our face right where they want it, right in the phone. They keep numbing us and distracting us so that a few people can get richer and richer and richer. And war is highly profitable. It's highly profitable. The military-industrial complex is a massive industry. The point I'm making is we're at a point where we can't be passive anymore. We can't keep watching shit and believing it. We can't keep letting ourselves get programmed by illusions on television. We have to all say, what do we want together? And what's the handwriting on the wall? My answer to your question is, if you look at the history of human beings in the last 200 years, their history is to avoid the resistance it takes, with some exceptions. The colored people got together and said, we need to be treated fairly. And Martin Luther King and others initiated a revolution. Gandhi said, that's enough.
Yeah.
I'm not going to let the British rule our country. And he sacrificed himself to become a leader. When people with soul rise up at any cost, they can slay the dragon. The question is, are we too numbed and addicted to realize that the dragon's got us right by the throat? And are we happier just being drugged and dumb and unconscious of the consequences? So what I'm saying is, we have some indications that human beings have spirit and power, and they will stand up. We have great ones, but the masses typically don't. I say, I hope and pray that we get it before we go into a crisis. But my gut instinct tells me it's going to take a crisis that kills millions of people, knocks us right out of our ordinary way of living, to get us to go, okay, that's it. I don't care what color you are. I don't care what religion you are. If you got something to eat, you're my friend. And if they're going to say, if you can take the pain out of my neck, you're my friend. And if you can show me how to get north because I'm lost, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
When you level the playing field where we all need each other, then we'll have to build it from the ground up, and we'll know right then and there what's sustainable. So the answer is, I hope that we have enough Gandhis and Martin Luther Kings amongst us to lead us. The problem is they don't get any airtime, and the young people don't listen to them very much. The reality it is, based on my 58 years of life, it's we're all going to need to go on a shamanic journey together, and it's coming.
Now I'm just freaked out. We can't end there. So
Well, don't be freaked out, because look, if you were alive during the Second World War, you'd have thought it was the end. If you were alive during the First World War, you'd have thought it was the end.
Yeah.
If you were alive during the Vietnam War and you got drafted, you probably would have thought it was the end. I joined the military because the Cubans, the Russians took missiles into Cuba, and I thought, okay, shit, we're facing a nuclear war here. I got to do my part. So I jumped in, became a paratrooper, and right when they were about to ship me and my buddies off to Grenada, the thing came to an end. So I got lucky and didn't have to go, shoot at people.
Yeah.
But the reality of it is that death feeds life, and death keeps you honest. If you don't want to die, then live like you don't want to die. And if you live like you don't want to die, then you're not afraid to die, because you say, I've lived, so I'm curious, what's next? I tell people life and death are names for two halves of a circle. Consciousness can't die. We are consciousness. Consciousness is that which forms matter in order to have an experience. So the truth of it is, our bodies die, as it says in the Bible, ashes to ashes, dust to dust. But what you really are isn't your body. That's why when you look at yourself in the mirror, you say, my nose or my hand. That's a possessive. You know you're in possession of your body. And when I tell you 2020, I say the high priestess is the soul. If you don't spend time inside yourself, you never get to know who you are. So of course you're going to be afraid of dying.
Right.
But when you realize that what you really are is the whole universe looking through you, and its age is incalculable because the Big Bang is just one of an endless series of Big Bangs, then really the whole universe is just an ongoing process of creativity. It's a dance. It's a play. It's a song. So if you really like the life you got right now, I'll give you a tip. Do the things that make it meaningful and live fully, and share your love and passion with the world like I'm doing with you right now, so that if you do die, you know you did your best to make the world a better place for everybody, and there's no better way to go out than that.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you die and you go, what was that all about? And you if you were unconscious when you were alive, you'll be unconscious when you die. You just wake up in another body, and Groundhog Day. And that's what the wheel of samsara is. Life and death, life and death. And how do you get off it? You wake up. Steiner said the purpose of spiritual practices is to teach you to die while you were awake, so that you're conscious when you die. But it takes inner development. I could go much deeper, but I don't know if your audience is ready for that level of technical explanation of spiritual development. But the point being is, death is what keeps you excited. You ever driven your car real fast?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right
65
on the
Mustang, so it goes.
There you go. So
up
you
and
right,
goes.
that's when you're alive.
Right.
When
Got
you're
a good
making,
motor.
you ever had sex so intensely that it hurt for days?
Yes, multiple
Good.
times.
And you knew you were alive, right?
Or maybe that was something else.
No,
Probably get it checked,
I'm
actually.
not sure how you to interpret that.
Yeah.
Like I was a paratrooper. Dude, we're doing jumps at 850 feet. You got 1 second to figure out if you got a malfunction, or you're dead. Your ass will go through your head when you hit the ground. And there's 750, 800 of us jumping at once. I never did a single jump where someone didn't at least get a broken leg. When you jump out of an airplane like in a mass attack like
Yeah.
that, your adrenaline's through the roof.
You're riding the fucking dragon.
You're on the dragon, baby. You know you're alive.
Yeah.
And when you hit the ground, you go, let's do it again.
Yeah.
Right? So the thing is the paradox is all the scary shit that we're talking about, it should enliven us to say, hey, we got to fix the playground up.
Right.
Because we're having fun, but we got to stop to repair it, because the playground itself is alive, and we owe Mother Earth the love and respect. Here we are so smart we can fly damn jets and rockets to other moons and other planets, but we're ruining our own. I mean, Elon Musk and all these guys spending all this money to go to other planets. Dude, put the money into the soil. Put the money into our education system. Put the money into our kids. Put the money into cleaning up the environment. Put the money into rebuilding our mythology and telling stories that are empowering, instead of thinking there's a God watching you touch your genitals that'll burn you in hell. Well, you're already in hell if you live that way.
Yeah.
There's no hell to go to. So once you realize that heaven and earth have the same address, and hell and earth have the same address, which is halfway between your left ear and your right ear,
Yeah.
well, if you look where we're sitting right now. We're sitting on top of a mountain, right? With a beautiful view. This is my reminder of the beauty of Mother Earth every day. And this is where I come worship the plants and the animals and the lizards and the hawks and the snakes and the spiders and the things that sting and bite and remind me that this is their home too. And this is where I remember that everything's alive. This is where I remember that everything's in the supermarket was once alive somewhere, and we become so disconnected we do not worship. We eat like gluttons, and we sacrifice without any reverence. You're never really alive until you realize that your life requires life. You understand that? When you realize that the food that you ate today was once alive, and it had its own relationships and its own life, and it wanted to live just as bad as you, then you realize that the entire fabric of our existence depends on caring for those beings that give us life. But we've been too disrespectful, we've gotten too disconnected, and we've got too in love with reductionist, scientific, materialistic science, and we've gotten too far from the spiritual truth and the magic and the mystery. And the magic and the mystery is this: it's a long goddamn ways to the next planet that'll hold life. We don't have a car or a plane that'll get us there. So the first thing we should do is fix up the spaceship and know that we need each other to do it, and make that the party, because it'll require all the brain power and technology we have to restore this thing. And the beautiful thing is, all the technology that we're using to destroy the Earth has the power to be used. Computers are being used to destroy the planet, but they can be used to heal it. Communications technology can destroy your life, or they can be used to heal it.
Yeah, the neutral.
You can turn it all around. That's the grand opportunity. Do you see?
Yeah.
This is the time for your age group not to get into a state of shock and fear, but say, we need to get our shit together.
Yeah.
And we need to focus on what's really important, because our parents and our grandparents have their heads up their ass
Yeah.
and they're not solving the problem. And they've made themselves so tired and lazy that they don't give a shit, and they're already dead, most of them.
Yeah.
You guys should be alive enough to say, okay, it's our turn. Let's step up to the plate and let's choke out all the corporations. What's that young girl from Sweden, I think it is, Gretchen, who's going at Trump about the environmental policies and stuff?
Oh, I'm not too big into politics, to be honest.
Oh my, there's
I
this
know.
young Swedish girl, and
Yeah.
and she is
Yeah.
got, I mean, she's got billy goat balls. Her ovaries hang down. And I'm so proud of her, dude. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
She gets on national, international media and drills Trump a new butthole, and she's telling the truth,
Yeah.
how disrespectful he is, etc. We need young warriors like that. And when you have something to fight for, that's when life gets meaningful.
Yeah.
That's when you're alive. But worrying about what you're going to watch on TV tonight, or where your next sports bar is going to come from, or your next BMW or whatever, that's the destruction of an entire culture.
Right.
That's unsustainable.
Well, Paul, this has been absolutely fantastic. I know we're losing our sun and getting a little cold over here, but if people want to join the fight and like really invest, I mean, I highly recommend you guys check out Paul's podcast, Living 4D.
Living 4D with Paul Chek. Yeah.
It's been a game changer. I
I've
love
got
listening
over
to that.
550 videos on my YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/Paul Chek live.
Yeah.
That's my gift to the world. That's my public service. I put a video out every week to help you guys do exactly what we're talking about.
Yeah. And then if people are interested in your certifications, I'll link it down below for them. But
It's chekinstitute.com. You can do our holistic lifestyle coaching program, which teaches you how to use all the principles in my book, How to Eat, Move, and Be Healthy, and guide you through it step by step. Me and my wife, Angie, who's also a highly skilled shaman and a nutritionist, and degree in biology and a degree in energy medicine, who's very real. So HLC 1 can be done online, and it gets you into our professional training. So if you want to come to the intensive 5-day where you get your training to go out and be a holistic lifestyle coach for a living, which the world needs badly,
yeah.
that's how you get to it. You go through HLC 1 to get you, but the Chek practitioner program is there as well. And you can look at all of that. We got the Chek Academy, which is a 4-year guided training program. So you become a master of holistic health. And if you can't make a living teaching people how to get healthy today, then you won't make a living in anything, because there's, almost 7 billion sick people on the planet.
Right. Right. Well, Paul, appreciate it so much. Thank you so much for having us out here.
Hey, thanks for coming, and thanks for your interest. I'm glad to see there's young guys that are, interested in talking to old guys like me that know how to ride dragons.
Well, you've been ride those dragons. You've been a huge inspiration. So
Thank you.
This has been awesome. Thank you.
Buddy, stay well and keep up the great work.